How the heck did a movie filled to the brim with overdone cliches, shaky at best character motivations, and downright absurd plot points still end up making nearly $2 billion in only a few weeks? And also actually end up being a pretty good movie. Tonight, we're going to deep dive into Avatar: The Way of Water, the much anticipated sequel to the literal highest grossing film of all time, James Cameron's 2009 space opera epic, Avatar. This is Did Y'all See That? Okay. Hello, everybody. Hello again. I am your host, Ngozi Mai, the Jungu VTuber. Welcome to our first episode of Did Y'all See That in 2023. Happy New Year. Did Y'all See That is the podcast for the fiercest lovers of pop culture, where we talk about the latest in film, TV shows, video games, Broadway musicals, social media, and much, much more. Thank you all for tuning in for the show. Viewers on YouTube and TikTok, please be sure to follow and subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so that you can be pinged right away when a new episode drops. We are live every Wednesday night on Twitch as Did Y'all See That? All one word. Join my Discord, Gozy Bub Central, to suggest topics for future episodes and to just nerd the hell out with like-minded individuals such as myself. Don't forget to support your girl on my other channels as well, at Ngozi Mai on Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify. Tonight's episode is a pop your culture episode where we will explore various relevant topics in modern media and just nerd the hell out. Our burning topic tonight is Avatar: The Way of Water, which just came out early last month but is already on its way to competing with its predecessor for the crown of the highest grossing film of all time. There will be spoilers in this episode about Avatar 2, so podcast listeners, I will verbally warn you when the spoilers begin and end, but a heads up, pretty much the whole episode is full of spoilers. You've been warned. To those watching live or on the VOD on YouTube, if you see this image appear, let me find it. Please assume that we are talking about something that you could be spoiled on. I recommend muting by default and shooting in message to chat, asking what we're talking about before unmuting. When the image goes away, then you're safe to unmute. With all that out of the way, let's get started with Pop Your Culture. Ow, you bubs, pop your culture like this. Tell me about it, goes you work that shit. Ow, you bubs, pop your culture like this. Tell me about it, goes you work that shit. All right, we're going to go ahead and dive right into our main segment tonight. Gozy zooms in. In this segment, I take a topic in pop culture and do a deep dive analysis on it. Tonight's topic is Avatar: The Way of Water. Major spoilers ahead, folks. Major spoilers. We are back on the small gas giant moon of Pandora, several years after the Na'vi successfully repelled the human colonizers from their home. They are thriving and happy, with Jake and Neytiri starting a beautiful family comprised of 3 of their own kids, the eldest brother, Neteyam, the ambitious, impulsive, and naive Loak, and the adorable, spunky youngest daughter, Took. They also adopted an additional 2, Kiri, who was mysteriously conceived and born from the avatar of the deceased Grace from the first film, and Spider, who we find out is Colonel Quaritch's son. Heads up, I might call him Quaritch because that's what I've trained myself to call him, but it's actually Quaritch. So if you hear me say Quaritch, you know who I'm talking about. But yeah, Quaritch's son is Spider, which I know. Where the hell did that come from, right? We'll get into those kind of plot holes a little bit later. Let's start with what Avatar 2 did better than Avatar 1, the characters. They are no longer just decorations to push Jake's story along. All of the main characters in the film had life, purpose, and direction. Granted, the side characters were still pretty damn cartoony, but it wasn't as distracting from the characters whose arcs we really mattered, you know? I'm going to focus specifically on the Sully family. They were undeniably the heart and soul of the film, each having their own unique personality and character arc. I'll admit that the character tropes in some, if not all, of the family members were super cliche, but I think the execution was actually really nicely done. Starting with Jake. Jake taking on the military dad trope was a little disappointing just because it's so hackneyed, but it wasn't a terrible direction for his character to go. It was disappointing mostly because it's just overdone. It's called a cliche for a reason. especially with the military characters running their homes like the military. That said, it's not as if it's not rooted in reality. So I'm actually a Navy brat myself. My dad was in the military, and while wasn't any yes sir, no sir in my childhood, there was a distinct style to my dad's parenting that 100% stemmed from his military experience. So it's believable that his character would go in this direction. Sam Worthington also did a phenomenal job transforming his character into a father role, because it really would have been really easy for him to just copy and paste his 2009 Jake Sully, but this Jake felt more grounded, more driven by the purpose of protecting his family. Neytiri, on the other hand, felt tragically underutilized in this film, especially with her kind of Catelyn Stark, Jon Snow dynamic with Spider. For those that aren't aware, Catelyn Stark and Jon Snow are characters from Game of Thrones. Jon Snow was presumably the bastard son of her husband, so as a result, she had like a really strained relationship with him, on borderline hated him. And we kind of see a lot of that teasing between Neytiri and Spider kind of throughout the film. They don't focus on it, but they kind of they sprinkle in moments there that make you kind of go, "Ooh, wow, I really hope to see more of that in Avatar 3," just because it was teased so much, but not necessarily addressed head on. Neytiri felt a lot like the angry wife trope in this film, just kind of there to push back against anything Jake wants, which was really disappointing for her. You know, she's a badass. They did show her badass moments in the film. We'll get to that a little bit later. And she is very much clearly meant to be kind of the emotional rock of the family, but it really felt like they reduced her arc a lot, and I really hope they fix that in the next film. Netayam was also very diminished as far as characters go for pretty much the entire movie, which is why I immediately clocked 20 minutes, literally 20 minutes into the film, I fucking knew he was going to die. I knew he was going to die because of his dynamic being the oldest brother, you know, the closest to his father. His father maybe like not so secretly loves him the most, you know, and constantly overshadowing his younger brother being better than him than everything. You know, it was a classic setup for Loak, his younger brother, to be uplifted later. And of course, the way to uplift the younger brother is to have the older brother die. And it really made for his character to be really underutilized. You know, he didn't really have a lot of screen time, especially because they were trying to sell us on him and his such a strong relationship with his parents. We really didn't get to see much of it, you know? We didn't get to really see him interact too much at all with any character because he just was underutilized. You know, even in his death, when I cried for his family's mourning of him and not for him because I didn't really get to know him. The audience didn't really get to know Netayam. Interestingly, his actor that plays him is actually signed on to Avatar 3 and 4 despite his character's fate. So we're likely going to see him in some capacity again. It could be similar to how Kiri and Grace happened. There really could be opening up a piece of lore in that nobody really dies, you know, that people are just reborn, like reincarnated. So I don't know. It's too early to tell if that's really what's happening or if it was just a special thing with Grace. But we will probably see Netayam again in some capacity in the future. Loak is arguably kind of the main protagonist of the film, even outshining Jake a lot. You know, he's the little brother that's always fucking up, you know, but still craving that approval of his hard ass father. Another unfortunately overused trope, but I digress. It was executed in a way that I think was effective. You know, Loak has heart. You know, he's kind of exactly like his father. He's rebellious and he's strong-willed and strong-minded and knows what he wants. He's kind of exactly like his father in a lot of ways in Avatar 1. Yet his father reprimands him. Another trope. Loak's relationships were among my favorite parts of the film. You know, his love for his brother, what little we did see of him interacting with his brother, it was very, very, very moving. His burgeoning romance with Sireya, I hope I'm saying her name right. Sireya is the girl that's a part of the water tribe that catches his eye. His loyal friendship with Payakun, who is one of the Tolkun, except this Tolkun was outcasted for murder, but Loak is still loyal to him and even like tries to warn him when they're in danger. It's really, really, really touching. I really got intensely moved every time there was a scene between these two. And one of them's not even talking. It's kind of amazing. As well as his strained relationship with his father that adds complexity and his overwhelming love for his siblings. Kiri is one of the most interesting characters in the whole fucking movie, man. She's, again, mysteriously born from Grace's deceased avatar, and no one knows how. No one knows who her father is, how she was conceived. So throughout the entire movie, she knows she's different. She feels a closeness to the earth, to Pandora, that no one else does. It's very natural to her. And she very, very strongly desires to know her mother and to know where she comes from and to know why she's different. And that whole arc is one of the most emotionally impactful arcs in the film. One of the parts I genuinely cried on, it was one of the earlier parts in the film, was when she connected with the soul tree of the water people, and she kind of had like a dream type of situation where she met Grace. And then they hugged, and it was really, really touching. I cried my eyes out on that part. She seems to essentially be Pandora's version of Jesus Christ. Like, she's pretty much an immaculate conception of a being that embodies Awa herself. You know, she has this deep connection with the flora and fauna of Pandora, and she's naturally able to commune with and even manipulate them. And then Took was definitely the cute kid of the film. So obviously not much could be done for her character because she's so young. But she's very spunky and brave, just like her parents, and you love her to death by the end. You love her to pieces. I'm sure that they'll utilize her more as she gets older. It would be really, really cool if they focused the remainder of her arc in the series, especially if the series is in wartime, which it kind of like insinuated that it's going to be like all out war in the next couple of movies. It would be really cool to observe her character growing up in the midst of war. I think that would be a really cool perspective of this whole story to observe. Another great improvement that Avatar 2 made on its predecessor was making the villain more compelling and relatable, at least attempting to. Additionally, giving the villains better motivations for being on Pandora in the first place. Mind you, they're still not good. They're still not good motivations, but they are better. Quaritch was an interesting choice to bring back. If you recall, he died. He was murdered in the first film at the end of it. And in this film, they brought him back as an avatar. Like, that's the thing that they're canonicizing, is that they kind of made copies of all of the soldiers that they sent to Pandora, avatar copies, so that if they were to perish on Pandora, they could just like put their memories, a snapshot of their memories in the avatar and kind of bring them back to life. Flimsy, I get it. It took me aback too. I was like, I don't know if I buy that, but I was able to get over it relatively quickly. But it definitely, if that hit your ear wrong, you're not weird. It hit me wrong too. But yeah, especially him coming back and kind of learning to live life as an avatar, as well as giving him a son, you know, which is something they kind of retconned too, because there was no mention of a fucking son in the first film. But you know what? It's something that we're just gonna have to accept. He starts out as the same kind of cringy hoorah asshole, making dumbass jokes. There was like a joke where like he was briefing all of the other Avatar soldiers, and he said, "Why so blue?" And I'm like, cringy. But they made a choice to humanize him, you know, especially when he confronts his human death and his kid and the killer, the killer that killed him, which was Neytiri. There was kind of a weird humanity that I saw in the character that I kind of never saw before. I was very skeptical at the beginning of the film because I really thought they were just going to do a copy paste of the cringy army, America, fuck yeah, type of army shit at the beginning in the first film. I hated that they did that, and I know they did. I know they did it for satire. I know they did, but when satire is that on the nose, it stops being effective for me, in my opinion. Like, look back a few episodes when we talked about The Boys, you'll know what I mean. But yeah, as well as him unintentionally bonding with his son, like they capture Spider at some point in the film. And honestly, the bonding felt a little stunted to me because it was odd that Spider would trust them so quickly. But I forgave them for that because it was giving Quaritch complexity. You know, the fact that he gives a fuck more about whatever the hell that motivation, like, mind you, the motivation they gave for the villains, for the humans, was we need to kill Jake Sully. Jake Sully's the enemy, so we need to, that's your mission, is to kill him, which made no fucking sense to me because like in the first film they sent everybody back to Earth, but they're like basically in this film, when they set up the Avatar soldiers, they had like a video recording of Quaritch as a human that he recorded to give himself as an avatar, as, hey, you're an avatar now, so just deal with it. But by the way, your enemy is Jake Sully. And that doesn't make any fucking sense because like like, I don't know, when they would have had time to prepare these avatars, it would not have occurred in the events of the first film. Like, they strongly insinuated that they made these avatars before they even got to Earth, or before they even left Earth. So it doesn't make any sense that they would already have this vendetta against Jake Sully. But anyway, sorry, I digress. That was a thing that hit my ear wrong, and I was like, okay, that doesn't make any fucking sense to me. And I was like looking around in the theater. I'm like, is anybody else like fucking reacting to this? Because this doesn't make any fucking sense. But I forgave them for it. I forgave them for it. You know, he comes back. He finds out he has a son. And he's thinking in his original Soldier Boy mission is, I need to kill Jake Sully, but he starts softening up on that because he's bonding with his son, and his son doesn't want him to do that. His transformation is not completely hacked up. You know, there are parts that feel a little bit unearned, but honestly, it's pretty clear and gradual and natural that he's beginning to care about his son throughout the movie. You know, it was not forced. It was not forced. It only felt stunted, in my opinion, due to editing. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes, but it really did give him some of his humanity back, which I was very happy to see. For instance, him choosing not to massacre a whole ass village due to developing a conscience was not totally unbelievable by that point in the film. You know, we had seen enough character development from him that I was like, yeah, I could believe him not murdering it, because quite frankly, in Avatar 1, Quaritch would have killed the fuck out of that village. He wouldn't give a fuck. So the fact that they actually gave him enough development to like develop a conscience so that he made the right choice was significant, in my opinion. Another improvement that Avatar 2 builds, or another improvement that Avatar 2 makes over its predecessor, is that it builds a clear trajectory towards its sequels with storylines without leaving the audience frustrated with cliffhangers and unresolved storylines. You know, you feel satisfied at the end of this film. They are 100% setting up threads of stories to continue, but you're not left, they're not cheap. You're not getting left with the Walking Dead treatment. Like, y'all remember the end of, I think, season 7, where Negan is about to bash somebody's head in, and we don't find out until season 8 who it was. It's none of that. There's none of that in this shit. Like, it's very satisfying how they close the film. And it does actually, I think it really does make you excited to see the next one. You know, they didn't sacrifice the self-contained story to set up the larger universe, which was a smart move. There was a clear conclusion on a very light conclusion pointing toward the future, which was not done really in any recent franchise as well as it was done here. You know, franchises usually go the Marvel route, where instead of establishing a fuller universe within the movie itself, they do an entirely self-contained plot and then slap on some fan service teaser at the end, connecting it ever so barely to the larger universe. I'm looking at you, Iron Man. I was like, I forget which one it is. I think it was the end of fucking like Captain America or something, where like it had nothing to do with Avengers, and then at the post-credit scene, Iron Man comes in and says, "Hey man, I'm putting together an Avengers initiative," and it's just slapped on. There's no real foresight to the bigger universe, because mind you, Marvel, small tangent, Marvel didn't really start coalescing its vision until they brought Kevin Feige on, and that wasn't until like partway through phase 1. Like that was around the time where they started realizing, oh shit, we have like a real opportunity to make some fucking money here. Let's make a fucking huge universe. And at that point, then they started being more conscious of their extended universe. Granted, they still went the fan service route. They weren't as nuanced with it. Whereas they are nuanced. James Cameron has really thought about this. He really fucking thought about where he wants this universe to go. Every little inch of it, he knows what he wants. And I think that's the reason I think that's the reason why they've done such a better job here on setting that up and ensuring that we're getting those breadcrumbs that we need to invest in the characters and truly care about what they want, who they are, and what their fates are, you know? So, for example, the Sully family being fully accepted as water people, that's huge. That's huge. Where's that going to go in the future? The hunting of that valuable serum inside the Tulkun, that's a way more compelling natural resource. Y'all remember fucking unobtainium? You remember that shit? No, oh, that was so stupid. That was so fucking stupid. And now, like unobtainium in the first film was literally just some fucking faceless mineral that was valuable. And we don't know why it's valuable or anything like that. Whereas this new serum, we'll talk about it a little later, but this serum actually has like tangible value that we can like, okay, we can get that. But it's also way more emotionally devastating on how they get it. So there's more at stake instead of just some nameless fucking faceless fucking mineral that humans want for some reason. Loak's friendship with Payakun, the exiled Tulkun, we didn't really see that get resolved. We know that they're still friends, but he's still exiled. And we really we know why he's exiled, but now we want to find out, is he ever going to clear his name with the rest of the Tulkun and stop being exiled? Then you've got Loak's romance with Zireya, that really didn't, all we really saw was that she reciprocates the feelings. That's it. But they didn't admit it to each other. They didn't kiss. So where's that going? The relationship between Loak and Jake, especially after the death of Netayam. When Netayam died, Jake was super fucking cold to Loak, but they had kind of a moment a little bit later because Loak saved Jake's life, and it kind of proved to Jake that Loak isn't a fuck up, that he raised him right, that he's ready to be a man, and that kind of brought a little bit of respect back back from Jake, as well as Kiri's mysterious conception. And her unique connection to Awa. We don't really know anything about that. All we know is that she has a connection. That's it. So we want to find out, where did that come from? What are the origins of that? And then finally, Spider's relationship with both the Sullys and Quaritch. Quaritch, like, he saved Quaritch at the end. He could have let Quaritch die, but he saved him. So clearly Spider cares about him. There's also the dynamic between Spider and Neytiri in the future. We're probably going to see that go, especially with Spider was with the humans for so long. Neytiri probably doesn't trust his ass. She probably doesn't trust his ass at all. So there's going to be some friction with that. There's going to be some conflict there. There is a lot to be excited about Avatar in the future. So let's talk about what Avatar 1 did well, but Avatar 2 still improved upon even more, starting with the even richer world building. 2009's Avatar excelled in establishing Pandora, as well as the history of the humans' arrival, its subsequent colonization of the planet, and the diverse tribes of the Na'vi people, which we only got a taste of in the first film, and then finally the presence of Awa in every living thing on the planet. Aside from the insanely advanced industry-shaping CGI technology used in the film, the world building was a huge part of what made Avatar successful. Avatar 2 expands on that foundation by going into more detail about other Na'vi tribes across the planet, focusing on the Metkayina. And it established that there are very different tribes, and then they actually evolved with different physiologies depending on where they live. The Metkayina people's tails are thicker, and they have fin-like shapes on their arms that are very thick and flat, and so they can excel in moving in water, as well as their lungs. Their lungs are optimized for extended periods of time underwater. Even their skin is a greener color to match the color of water for more camouflage. It's really cool. I'm really excited to see the other clans' physiologies explored in the next films, because apparently Avatar 3 is going to be about the Fire Clan. So very exciting stuff. The new film also expands upon our awareness of the universe outside of Pandora, particularly on Earth. The idea that Earth wants to colonize and mine Pandora was certainly made very, very, very clear in the first film, but it was still largely siloed to Pandora itself, with no real tangible connection to Earth. They did a better job hammering home that Earth's intentions with the rapid building of that whole industrial city, like within a year. That was pretty wild, really making it believable that Earth could colonize the fuck out of Pandora quickly and brutally. Additionally, the abandoning of unobtainium was fucking smart. Having this opaque, valuable resource with no clarity on why they want it so badly really hurt the first film, as it felt just generic. It felt generic, and I didn't fucking care about it. But this new serum that Earth wants is far more effective in terms of a motivation, because it has a tangible purpose, which is life everlasting. They say that like a whole vial of it, when you kill one Tulkun and you take a whole vial out of its brain, it's worth $80 million. But the vial is only like 1.5 liters of stuff. So they're killing a whole creature for like a liter and a half of this fucking liquid that apparently stops aging. So it's a tangible purpose for this thing that they want, right? And we get it. Like, man, as humans, it'd be pretty cool to fucking be able to live forever. But then now you're thinking, at what cost? The only way to get this material is by brutally poaching a peaceful creature, the creatures whose people make the conscious choice to not fight back. They're pacifists. It makes you fucking care about it. Another welcome expanding of the world building was the introduction of the Tulkun, speaking of that serum. We've seen Pandora animals before interacting with the main characters, but always as a means of transportation, usually. I know that sounds harsh, but I mean, that's kind of how I think about it. Like, they've all either just been wild animals or like a transportation mechanism for the Na'vi. But this is the first time that we've seen a species other than the Na'vi that are intelligent and deeply emotional. I'm not gonna lie, I initially rejected the Tulkun because it felt super fucking silly that the Metkayana people were like talking to fucking whales. Like, and they were like, it was mostly how casual the whales were replying in the subtitles. Like, they were just like, nah, fam, like, how's your summer vacation going? Like, it just felt so casual. And I'm just like, okay, this is taking me totally out of the wonder. The vibe just did not match the tone of the Na'vi people talking to them. Because you know how the Na'vi's people talk, when they're speaking English, they're speaking very properly and very full sentences. Whereas like the subtitles from the Tulkun was just like a bunch of Gen Zers talking. It was just very weird. I really had to get over it though. The whales that were speaking because they were speaking so casually, their reverence just kind of sort of disappeared initially for me. But as the scene went on, seeing the Na'vi play and chat with the Tulkun like they were long lost relatives, I got like unexpectedly extremely emotional, especially seeing the Tulkun babies and the Na'vi babies that are playing together like they're like literally like they're family members. The Tulkun felt like people, and they kind of are. It really changes how you look at all of the animals on Pandora, because they all, including the Na'vi, share that physiological connection through Awa. They all have like human-like or even beyond human intelligence. There isn't an intellectual separation between the Na'vi and animals. They're all people. And speaking of Awa, the deity got a lot more depth in this film with its connection to Kiri. The first film was very clear about all living things being connected, and they conveyed that in a really, really beautiful way. Avatar 2 really expanded on that through the similar striking, beautiful visual effects and very poetic writing. The effect is more potent with the addition of Kiri, allowing us to finally, quote unquote, see Awa's presence through her. Because before, we as humans kind of interpreted it as a religion, but it's not a religion. It's physical. It's real. Before, Awa was this faceless deity that we only really saw personified when she called the animals of Pandora to help the Na'vi against the humans. In this film, her presence is physically felt through Kiri, adding a level of wonder knowing someone is really there. Someone or something is there. It makes it more than just a religion. It's a physiological phenomenon, like Grace had been saying all along in the first film. And finally, the last real strength from the first film is the insanely exciting action sequences. I really did not enjoy the first two acts of Avatar 1 very much, but the last endgame style battle between all the Na'vi tribes and the humans was fucking dope. It gave me the goosiest of goosebumps, and that's how I know it was good. In Avatar 2, the action is still super rad, but even more notably, the action sequences focusing on Jake and Neytiri saving their kids hit different as hell. Jake and Neytiri have two of the best action sequences in the whole film, and it's just the two of them kicking the shit out of Korich and the humans. Like, it's crazy. It's just the two of them, and I was so prepared for one of them to die or something, but no, they won both times. Like, it was crazy. The whole last sequence where the Metkayana and Jake and Neytiri suit up to get their kids was badass as hell. You had the Metkayana wife or chief's wife who was pregnant, and the whole time she was like kind of hating on the Sullys. But she had a badass moment where her husband was just like, no, wife, you need to stay for the baby. She says, no, I ride. I was like, yeah, you do, bitch. Yes. That was rad, bro. The last climactic fight was satisfying as hell, down to that Australian prick losing his arm. He's definitely not dead, by the way. Like, they're giving him the Claw treatment from Black Panther. I remember Claw, where we thought he died, but he ended up coming back without an arm. That's this guy. They just like doing that with Australian guys, I guess. I don't fucking know. Now let's talk about what Avatar 2 could have done better. For starters, they need to work on Spider's character and his arc with Courage, man. Oh, Spider's actor too. I am so sorry to do this, man. That is not that he did not do a good job. He did not do a good job, man. That actor, I wonder if he just he had trouble connecting with the character, especially a character that doesn't have a lot of lines. Like his whenever he's acting without speaking, it was just kind of straight up bad. He exhibited the same emotion on his face in every scene I saw him. And even when something was there was a moment at the end when Netayam died and the Sully family are all sitting there mourning and everybody's sad as fuck. And then the camera pans to Spider and he's got the same facial expression he had the whole time with one little tiny tear eking out of his face. I just know that in between that take, they just like to put an eyedropper in his eye to just force him to cry because he was not giving. It was not giving, guys. It wasn't giving. So my man who plays Spider, please work on your craft, bro. Like, it's a good character, but damn, it was so distracting with how poor his acting was. And his arc with Courage was also a little bit like, it was good. It was good. It was very well written, but you could tell that it was impacted by the editing. You know, this film is 3 hours long and they cut a lot. You could tell throughout the film, whenever there was a scene going, and it would just kind of abruptly cut, and you could tell that it continued, but they had to cut it shorter for time, you know? So I think if we see a Cameron cut in the future, I think that we'll find that the interaction between Spider and Courage are going to be a lot more earned because we're going to be able to see it uncut. But I think it was really heavily affected by the cuts. It also could have been because they wrote themselves into a bit of a hole in Avatar 1, but the main motives of Courage and the humans to kill Jake didn't make much sense at all. It really might just be a retcon that we have to buy going forward, which is fine, I guess, but I don't know. IMO, humanity just being fundamentally against Jake Sully, not strong enough driver for the whole series. They need something else. They do. Honestly, the Tree of Life serum really could do it to some extent, but it's dangerously close to the unobtainium plot, which was super fucking dumb. So, yeah, if they execute it better, great, and they are executing it better. But I really, really think they need to re-examine like the motives in general of the humans in this series. They also need to reevaluate the focus on the storylines that they want to feature more than others. I really found myself wanting more screen time from Kiri, Jake, and Neytiri a lot, and even the new characters in the Metkayana clan and Payakan. You know, I think they spent too much time on the humans. I know why they did that. I know it's because they wanted to really land home the bonding between Courage and Spider and showing so that later in the film, when Courage starts making these character changing decisions, as well as even at the end with Spider saving Courage, they wanted that to feel earned. I'm going to tell you that it still didn't feel earned, honestly, but I just think they just gave too much screen time to the humans. I really wanted more screen time to our main family, as well as the Metkayana people. You know, I get that they needed a big bad, and they specifically went with Courage to be that, especially with his new character complexity added with his son to it. But it just felt too military hoorah still. And that is a consistent criticism that I had with the first film too, you know. And honestly, I think it added very little to the viewing experience, to be honest. Like, we get it. The humans are fucking evil. Like, it's not really something they really needed to land home that hard. They also need to be better about introducing new antagonist characters because they have a really bad habit of making these villains cartoony as fuck. The Australian guy and Jermaine Clement's scientist guy were way too fucking hammy to take seriously. I didn't take them seriously. Anytime they had screen time, I'm just like, y'all are fucking dumb. Get them off my screen. Give me more Jake and Neytiri. You know, I really think it was a detriment, you know? And honestly, they probably would have done better by introducing them earlier in the film. They were kind of shoehorned in around like 2/3 of the film, when they were when we were already kind of in the last act of the film, that's kind of when they were shoehorned in. And I really think they really could have made that a better focus, rather than the whole, oh, go get Jake Sully plot. It was trying, they were trying way too hard to make these two unlikable, and it came off as hammy. Like, you're poaching peaceful, actively pacifist creatures that will not fight back. You're already fucking unlikable, dude. You're already like lighten the load, guys. Come on. All in all, this was a really nice film. I really, really enjoyed this film. I cried several times. I came away from it really loving these new characters and reigniting some admiration in older characters that I can tell you now I didn't have, because I didn't fucking care about any character in Avatar 1. I can very much say I care about just about all of them in this one. So it was an overwhelming improvement on 2009's Avatar, and it elegantly sets up the rest of the series. Despite a few very brief scenes that felt like they kind of slightly dragged on, I was fully engaged with the story pretty much the whole time. The story, the characters, the world building, just about for the entire 3-hour runtime. It never felt too long or overdrawn, and overall it had me emotionally invested. I let out more than a few thug tears. I'll be curious to see where they go in the stories now, since it seems like Jake is all in for war with the humans. You know, he has a compelling reason to fight now, you know, with his family. He's trying to protect his family. But I'm looking forward to see how they write the humans in that war, because their motives in this film were weak at best right now. So overall, this film gets a 7 out of 10 from me, and I'm not surprised in the least bit with how much money this movie's making. And that, folks, was Gozi Zooms In, and that concludes our episode tonight. Thank you all out there for tuning in. This episode will be released on all major podcast platforms on Monday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific. The edited VOD recording will also be released on YouTube on Monday at the same time. My name is Ngozi Mai, and this has been Did Y'all See That? I hope to see you next time. All right, y'all. Bye.